takes 2 minutes to create the video and 45 minutes for a human to edit it. And what this gives people access to is fresh content at the end of the day. You know, now we can start creating video. Yes, the evergreen video that talks about the property, but, you know, the penthouse that's available, or focus on, you know, their 2-bedroom apartment communities or just their amenities, the neighborhood, you know, all the way through the renter funnel. It's, for the first time, it's going to allow us to have like a video first strategy.
All right, Matthew, introduce yourself.
My name is Matthew Kilmer. I'm the founder and CEO of apartmentgeofencing.com. I've been in digital marketing for, since 2001. Kind of grew up in the agency world, went client side as the VP of digital at Bozzuto and then Avalon Bay, and launched this company about 5 years ago. And we've grown quite a bit. We're now at 55 employees and working with apartment communities kind of across the whole country. We also work with hotels and restaurants, and glad to be here with you guys today.
Awesome. And you brought a friend.
I brought a friend. Phil, introduce yourself.
I'm Phil Sewall. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at apartmentgeofencing.com. I've been in digital since 2005. Known Matthew for about 15 years now. Started off agency world, went B2B, went retail, and I've been all over the place. And just joined him almost a year ago, and so I'm still less than a year into multifamily. Still,
well, since you're the VP of marketing, because I was going to ask Matthew, and I asked him plenty. I've asked you a few times offline or off air, but Intrinsic. Where's Intrinsic? Because like I see the lanyards. They say apartment geofencing. Your
Right.
VP of marketing just said apartment geofencing. You did as well.
I almost slipped.
Yeah. So fill that in for us. Because does that have to do with like these other verticals you serve? And
It
so when you
does.
show up at these conferences,
Yeah.
I'm apartment geofencing. But if you're at a hotel like conference, then you're Intrinsic. Is
Well,
that simple?
So Intrinsic Digital is the company name, but our clients only know us as either apartmentgeofencing.com, hotelgeofencing.com, restaurantgeofencing.com.
Oh, that's great. You have all three domains.
We have all three, and so it's
What did
really
that cost you?
at the time $9 a year.
Nice.
Well done.
So Intrinsic is really our like recruiting. Like if you go to the Intrinsic website, it's all about what it's like to work here and who we are, and that's how we attract new employees.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes a ton of sense.
And I also noticed, this is the kind of thing sometimes you do, or more often do than I, Matthew, which I've also asked you about. It's like, can we call you Matt? And you're like, you can, but I might not respond, or I might not talk to you.
You don't have a friend anymore.
Yeah. And then you have Phil,
Right.
and instead of Philip. So can you guys share a little bit of childhood? I don't know if it roots that far back, but is it in fact just Phil, or is it Philip and you've chosen Phil and you've stayed with Matthew versus Matt?
I mean, I know this is cliche, but my mom calls me Philip, and she's the only person that's ever called me Philip. And then my wife calls me Philip when she's mad at me, when she's yelling, or if I've done something stupid, she calls me Philip. Like if she wants to speak to me like I'm a child, she calls me Philip. Otherwise, just Philip.
That is
I
very
didn't
cliche.
even know that your actual first name was Philip.
This is
I've
how well
only
he
known
knows me.
Phil.
Yeah.
So what's your story?
I grew up Matt, and when I started working at Bozzuto, it was bothering me because when I say my full name, Matt Kilmer, it sounds like Mac. Okay?
Oh.
And so people started hearing Mac and like saying, is his name Matt or Mac? And I was like, all right, I'm done with this confusion.
Yeah.
So I went with the Matthew. It was like a clean break too. I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it
Yeah.
all the way.
All in. I love it. That's the scoop I was looking for. He's more indifferent. I mean, I never see on a lanyard with
I've
David.
asked him multiple
It's always
times.
David, but plenty of people call him Dave. Doesn't skip a beat.
I don't even notice.
What does
whatever.
that say about you that you just
Yeah.
don't have a preference?
I'm surprised when they say King David. I'm like, oh, yeah, didn't know you knew my real name.
He gets
But-
that a lot at work.
Yeah.
Except for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We digress.
I did want to compliment the Intrinsic versus apartment geofencing, hotel, and restaurant. Is it restaurant geofencing? Is that what you said? Because that's very similar. Have we talked about this to the Wayfair model when they started?
No.
Okay, so when Wayfair started, they went like onlybunkbeds.com, shagrugs.com, and they had over 200 domains that they owned because they were like, let's go super niche. Wait, you say niche, right?
It is niche.
Yeah, okay, so niche. They go super niche.
Jeff,
And And they were like,
Be
the
the authority
SEO
there.
was amazing for that for them. And then it was a really big deal when they decided to finally try to combine these 200 websites together into
Right.
one. And they were very concerned about losing the SEO, but they did it smartly and they didn't take too big of a hit. So it's interesting.
And that'll eventually be us, I think, especially as we diversify our suite of products and services. you
But
know?
that flies in the face of Jim Collins, the hedgehog, because I feel like that's what you guys have been. And last time I talked to you, I think you were like, we're not abandoning, these other verticals, but we are really concentrating our efforts on multifamily. So is there a change, like an update, that you guys actually may, in fact, be expanding into more verticals, or are you going to maintain your focus in apartments?
Well, we are moving away from restaurants. That industry is just having a really hard time right now. Their cost of goods sold is soaring sky high. Their labor, it was always small margins to begin with. So hopefully it comes back around. But the restaurant industry is really tough right now. Our focus is on multifamily and hotels. Hotels is kind of like multifamily, only just the sales cycle is accelerated versus a lease. There's a lot of crossover there. And I like being able to take what I learned from hotels into multifamily and vice versa. A lot of people always in multifamily say hotels are light years ahead of us, but I have to tell you, having worked closely with hotels for a while now, that's not always the case. There's a lot of things that multifamily does that is much more savvy than hotels.
Give us the yin and yang. Like, what are they? Where could we learn from them and vice versa?
AI
can
generated
learn-
video.
Yes, that for one. They can learn a lot from multifamily in how to position their individual assets. Because what's happened in hotels is they put all their energy and effort in the brands, and each individual hotel becomes a commodity, and it's nothing but price and location. There's no way for them to differentiate in their market why that hotel is any different. I mean, think about it. A courtyard in Baltimore. Like, why do you care unless it's the right price and it's near where I'm going? But the owners of these buildings, these are tens of millions of dollars of buildings that they own. They're all franchisees. Their life is sunk into these buildings. They want to differentiate themselves in some way, and they know how they're different. The staff, they put a ton of energy into it. Maybe they upgraded their lobby. They've got like different amenities there at the hotel that's unique, but there's no way to break through the noise because they have to give all their marketing money up to the brand, and the brand does these large national branding buys, and so they feel like they have no money left to differentiate themselves. All of the advertising is pushed to the Marriott app, and even there it's like an ILS, and so there's no way to differentiate inside of it. It's all the same headlines, same photos and stuff like that. So for as much as I hear in multifamily about people saying, oh, we need to start consolidating our brands, let's look at what hotels are doing.
Bonvoy, yeah. Everybody's using the Bonvoy example
Yeah, it's like,
for PMCs.
there is a huge downsides to that. If you're an owner of a building or an asset manager, be wary of becoming a commodity.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get a little plaque behind the registration desk that says this hotel operated by insert
Right.
hotel operator.
Yeah.
And if you're savvy, you read that plaque and you go, oh, okay, I get it. So, they actually take pride in what they're doing here. But that's all they get is a little plaque. Otherwise, it's just the residents in. That's all it is.
That's a great point.
So
And-
they get the negative feedback goes to residents in, but also the positive. If somebody has a great experience at that hotel, it's residents in did that for me, not this little operator on the plaque behind the desk, which is sad.
So, Phil, would you think we should take going the reverse direction? Should apartments be as interested in doing the overall brand like the Marriott Bonvoy, or should we stay individualized?
Yeah, I mean, I you're looking for someplace to live. I mean, I think you want to have more of a boutique-y, like bespoke experience. I mean, you're choosing where you're going to spend every single day and night for the next couple of years versus 1, 2, 3 nights. So, I mean, I think it's great that multifamily has, like, every single private property has its own unique boutique-y type of brand is, super important. I wouldn't change that.
Yeah, in my view, it's both. Put together an awesome brand that's around culture and service, and then the individual apartment communities maintain their individual look and feel, and something that I can connect to emotionally because this is my home.
Is that does that matter on density? of like properties in an area, or is that more like so that people know that they want to work, meaning owners want to give their stuff to Red Peak or something because of that? Like,
So when I was at Bazzuto, we had third-party management. We had Bazzuto.com, and we had, all the listings, the properties we managed. And then we had individual communities that Bazzuto managed. Now, the owners didn't want to send paid search traffic to Bazzuto because Bazzuto listed their competitors, right? And so we had, for every community, we had its own individual PPC campaign going directly to that apartment website, right? So when I went to Avalon Bay, I was super excited because Avalon's strategy is saturation in particular markets. So they're not all over the country. They take certain markets and they try to get saturation in it. And I was surprised when I got there to see that they were linking to each individual page for the apartment communities, not like a regional landing page. I was like, hey, well, we're not taking advantage of this. We've got all these communities in Northwest DC. Let's do a regional landing page. So we did a really big test, and at the end of it, we found out regional landing pages don't work, even though they were all Avalon communities. And as much as I could guess, it was because people are past that when they're getting to the search.
Yeah.
They've already been on the ILSs. They've seen enough maps. They've seen enough push pins. They're typing in 2-bedroom apartment, pet friendly. They want an actual hero shot of an apartment community. They don't want another map with push pins. So we ended up going back to sending people directly, and we would just rotate. We'd be like, okay, today we're going to send it to this one. Tomorrow we're going to send it to this one, depending on the need.
that's interesting. For what it's worth, we've seen the same thing with regional pages. It's not that they will be a complete failure. It depends what you want your
Yeah, it's not
customer
a complete
acquisition.
failure.
But it's definitely more efficient from a media spend perspective to have the individual website than the landing page with the whole market.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, especially in retail paid search, having the local landing pages or even like group local landing pages is going to get you a higher ad quality score every single day. So it's necessary.
Yeah. Well, talk about personalized AI video. So you guys are branching out from just geofencing, and you guys are now adding on other options and services. So how are you using AI video to scale for your customers?
Yeah, so it's still within geofencing. So we target where our customers, prospects live, work, and play. And with cross-device matching, if you are at, in the local area, we're able to catch that device ID, show display ads. We've been doing that for 5 years. But with cross-device matching, when you go home, connect to your Wi-Fi, we're able to say, oh, this is David's 2 smart TVs, 3 iPads, because you're connecting on the same IP address multiple times. And so then, we're able to kind of spread the ads across all the devices. And with that comes streaming TV. It's come a long way. When we first started doing this a couple of years ago, I actually talked to you guys at AIM about this. It was still like Pluto, like the Discovery app on the smart TV, that kind of stuff.
Hulu with like some huge buy-in.
Yeah.
Like those are some of the things. Well, go ahead. Fill it out for us.
Well, it was very like niche-y stuff that you could have access to programmatically. If you wanted Hulu or all those others, you had to go direct to them, and it was huge DMAs. So it wasn't, small radiuses. And
Cost
so
prohibitive. Yeah.
very cost prohibitive. But now everything's available programmatically except Netflix, but all the big ones. So we're running ads for clients on Disney, Hulu, Max, and then all the other ones. Amazon ads. No Netflix yet, but it's coming. So
Are there minimums for those platforms now?
no minimums.
Wow.
So it's based on the cost per 1,000. So you have to bid. For Pluto, you're talking $40 CPM. For Hulu and Max, like sometimes upwards of $180. But $180 to show a 15 or 30-second unskippable TV commercial. It's 10 times the cost of a display ad, sometimes 20 times the cost of a display ad. When you think about proportionally the impact that these ad units have, it's pretty worth it. But what we noticed is clients didn't have video. Their video assets were not 15 or 30 second. If they had any video, it was just like really long 2-minute intro video they did when it was a lease up 5 years ago, that kind of stuff. Or they have like the real link videos, which I like from a personalized standpoint, but they're not commercial quality in terms of being
Not something
marketing
you
for.
put on Netflix or whatever.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because it's like they're typically empty units. The lighting's not great. Like it's not a lot of the marketing characteristics that we see in really good video and photos. So we started with outsourcing it to production company, and it was a copywriter would write the script, and then they'd send it to us. We get the client's approval, and then we send it to, we grab all the images or any B-roll footage, send it to production. They put it all together. Then they would have a voiceover artist, after that. So three things, right? Copywriter, voiceover artist, production person. Comes back to us. We send it. That's 10 business days to get all that done. So more than 2 weeks in some cases. Then we send it to the client. And if they even say, oh, they pronounced this wrong, or you know what, I want to say this, you have to start the entire process over again. You have to get back on the schedule of the voiceover artist, and they may not be available right away.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman's booked.
Yep, booked. Booked solid.
I can do a pretty good impersonation though.
Yeah.
So
I'll save that for tonight.
it would take like 20 days, 20 business days to like from the beginning to the end. And it was still cost prohibitive, and it would be one video. And that's about all they'd have the money for. We'd have to use that video for their streaming TV for years in some cases. I mean, they would have the same video running for 2 years. So ChatGPT came out last year. We worked to build an integration where it scrapes the website. It pulls off all the text, all the images, just feeds it. Like think about when you feed OpenAI a bunch of information, and the output is we have templates for clients to choose from, but what the AI does is it writes the script, combines image and text, and it actually does a really good job of figuring out what's what, pool versus rooftop pool versus whatever, royalty-free music, and then a synthetic voice. And goodbye voiceover artists, and copywriters. It does still take human work. We spend about 45 minutes on average editing these videos once they come back. Because sometimes white text will be put on a white image, or it's just like like why did they pick that? But I mean, it takes 2 minutes to create the video and 45 minutes for human to edit it. And what this gives people access to is fresh content at the end of the day. Now we can start creating video. Yes, the evergreen video that talks about the property, but the penthouse that's available, or focus on their 2-bedroom apartment communities, or just their amenities, the neighborhood, all the way through the renter funnel. For the first time, it's going to allow us to have like a video first strategy.
And what do you guys see as best practice there? Like, because when we've done things like that using dynamic ads and whatnot, we had some clients that would be like, I want 7,000. I'm like, okay, well, I guess we could make 7,000, but that doesn't make sense. So I'm just wondering what you guys see as best practice.
We landed on just having a monthly cadence. So we do the initial video, and then we just update it each month. And so we start to build out the portfolio. So we've got 15, then the next month a 30, then a vertical versus the horizontal. Then we get deeper into their types and seasonality or specials, and they start to build a bank of video over time.
Yeah.
Because to do a bunch up front requires a lot from the client. And that's what we found. They like the idea of it, but then trying to get all the feedback and everything, it's hard.
So is that all scheduled when you talk about those variations, or are you able to leverage? Do you just keep running that with the Gen AI? With the AI, scraping, because you said it's pulling all that information. Yeah. Because it seems like that would be pretty cumbersome to have to schedule, and then I guess you do prompt engineering to be telling the AI which page to scrape. Are you following me? So when you say different, this is going to be more about the amenities, this is going to be more about the floor plans, this is going to be more about the on-site experience, etc. How are you orchestrating that out and scaling that, if you're not getting to just use kind of the default technology?
Well, since this is an open, honest place, we are
nobody's listening.
Wink, wink. I can get vulnerable here, right? Our process is wonky right now, and it's the one thing that clients have been giving us feedback on that needs to change. So every month right now, we're reaching out saying, "Hey, time to update your video. What would you like us to focus on?" And they're like, when every month I get your email, it stresses me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Be
probably
back where we're
exhausting
good.
for them.
Yeah.
It's, but I agree with you. I think it makes sense to try to figure out how to do it as a cadence. One, for you guys, too, for when you staff and build out. Two, for them on cost and time commitment.
Yeah.
Because then they can, over time, it's like amortized, basically, both the expense of making each of these videos as well as the time investment. So I think it makes sense. And I'm sure you can get there.
We'll get there. I think about like Google, right? Like you just give it a ton of headlines, descriptions, like in paid search, and you just have to be okay with all the different mix and match.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be something like that. So all the approved headlines, images, and things you want to focus on up front, and we're going to make variations of that. And we don't need your approval because you approved all of this. And then we're here whenever you want to reach out about specials or things that are changing or something that pops in your mind. It's the direction we're heading. We're trying to get a lot of client feedback right
So
now.
is there a surcharge then for creative services, creative video, or is that baked into
There
the
is
cost?
like a monthly cost, but we charge $95 a month for one new video a month. We don't make money on our creative, but it's a barrier to entry
Yeah.
into geofencing, so it's a bit of a loss leader for us. And then what we noticed is that it's also a barrier to good performance because creative fatigue sets in around the 21-day mark. That's what we've noticed, video in particular. And so we want our clients' campaigns to perform well. We want to consistently show them, high engagement. But if we have the same video, we can, that's what was going on. We were making all these other recommendations. The elephant in the room was you haven't updated your video in 9 months. So it's like, is this really going to help if we have this old creative? So we try to make it as affordable as possible.
I mean, it's also really opening the door for streaming TV. I mean, something that we're going to be really focused on is trying to kind of like reframe geofencing. People associate it with banner ads, but geofencing is just the targeting mechanism. And the reality is, like, we can make much more of an impact on streaming TV than with mobile banner ads, which will always be a part of it. But like creating opportunities like AI video, I mean, that's opening the door for a much more impactful experience.
Makes
That is
sense.
just people feel like they can't do because they don't have a video editor on their team.
Totally.
And even just if you did, like I remember back in the day, meeting Hulu's broadcast specs was always a challenge. They would send it back to us like 4 or 5 times. You just export it. We give you a file that's Hulu ready. Like there's no back and forth. So
There's a prestige and excitement, I'm sure, when you start dropping some of those like platforms on where they're going to show up.
It's been easier to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even for us with Spotify, people are like, I'm going to be on Spotify. I mean, not that it's not cool, but it's funny how quickly, like, you just
Yeah.
drop a few brand names and people get pretty, especially the owners, right? Because,
Yep.
yeah, that's their baby.
I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I want you guys to tease the white paper that you've been working on.
Yeah, so HUD just updated their guidelines. It came out about a month ago, and it's a dense read, but it goes a lot into AI. And it's still kind of up here a little bit, but essentially goes through all of the potential misuses of AI as it could be in the exclusion of certain protected classes. More around like optimization and machine learning, that AI, using AI to optimize campaigns and unintentionally excluding certain types of people
Yeah, what's it
that are
say?
protected classes. So, for example, if you have an array of ads and the system is auto optimizing that based on what's performing well, but it ends up being a certain, it's excluding certain groups and showing more to another group because this other group is engaging more. So now you've kind of left this group out, or even like the imagery that's being used. So if you have like 3 ads, and between the 3, it's diverse, but it starts showing one ad more than the other 2 because of performance. And what HUD did, and I recommend all digital agencies do this, is they have a list of essentially questions for every like digital agency and ad platform. And so what we're doing is we're going through and answering these questions as it relates to the work that we do. But I definitely would recommend you guys check it out because your clients will probably start asking like, hey, here's these new HUD questions. What's your answer to them? Well, one in particular is around the use of AI in the selection of what's being viewed. And this is where a human being does need to look at things. So I'll give you an example. We scrape a website. Okay, now one example is that the client's website had a diverse set of people being represented across the website. The AI just scraped kind of everything, put it all together, but just so happened to choose,
Yeah.
a certain person of a particular race and gender, just kind of across throughout the whole video.
Yeah.
So we needed a human to kind of see that and be able to mix stuff back in.
Yeah. Makes sense. Reed and I obviously have been close to fair housing for a number of years since the targeting had always been suspect. We have a lot of clients that ask us to do things on targeting that are not compliant with the old HUD guidelines, let alone the new ones. And there are things that make me nervous. Like, particularly as other agencies start to come into this space, they will often be like, oh, why are you getting charged X% to run this campaign? There's an auto-optimize button. Let me hit that button.
Right.
But that, like, Google doesn't know all about fair housing, and so it's going to auto-optimize on protected classes, on things that you should not be. So it does require more manual effort in this space in the U.S. than it does in other places. Like recently we had dinner with another company out of Canada, and they're like, yeah, we don't have any fair housing things, so like go hog wild. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Just because the government hasn't doesn't mean it's the right thing. So anyways, but I'm just more making the point about the not intentional malice, as we've talked about before, but more the ignorance. People just don't know better, and so they're like, oh, I'll auto-optimize. I mean, it's in the platform.
The intention doesn't matter, though, and that's what the HUD guidelines go into. Like, your intention of this has no bearing on whether this is
disparate impact.
Yeah. And but I do think that we need to start having more informed conversations. You can tell, nothing against all the good folks who are writing these guidelines, but you can tell that there's not like a real understanding of the ecosystem in digital marketing right now. A lot of the HUD guidelines were originally developed when there was no internet. So when you think of like redlining, it was, okay, I'm going to buy an ad in this newspaper. So I'm only going to show people in this neighborhood. And the original idea was, well, then how can somebody over here find out about your apartment community, right? Like, you're excluding them from being able to know where you are, what your cost is, and that kind of stuff. But now, pretty much every apartment community has a listing on an ILS with a public display of their pricing for anybody to see. So no matter what your income level is, you can type in 2-bedroom apartment, LA, and see all the apartments in cost. Even if you can't afford it, you can put a slider up to 10 grand a month and see all of it. So I think back to my days in Bizzuto, when it came to using a variety of people of color in our advertising, and it was about, we would put all of our ads on the table because we may have only a Hispanic person in this advertising that we're doing over here, but we have a black person here, a white person here. In aggregate, we had like a nice representation of all the types of people who live at our communities. But I think that's been lost a little bit in the targeting piece. So yes, in social media, I'm doing a 10-mile radius, and in paid search, maybe it's this too. In geofencing, I'm selecting 75 places I want to target. But then, in ILSs, I'm available to be seen across any one of these markets. And so in aggregate, when I put this across, am I really excluding anybody, in the overall access to my information?
The interesting thing about all this, and I'm glad you went there, because I was like, the access is still there, meaning I can search or find and discover what the price is for virtually any property, that's online. But Doug, is it Chase?
Yeah, Chasik.
The fair housing guy, he's been a great partner to us, consultant, as we were building out our fair housing technology. Talked about social engineering and the concerns there if you overdo it. So as much as he was, supporting and promoting and evangelizing these rules and guidelines and the importance of them, he's like, what you don't want to somehow happen is that in a building you have socially engineered that building, and it's not really a community. It's not residents that really would get along. And I'm trying to, approach this the right way. But I think about this because Dave and I have been obviously in digital advertising for a long time. And I was feeling this way when we were hearing about the cookie deprecation and eliminating cookies, where it's we're going to go back to 95, when the internet just started, and you have no idea what kind of ad you're going to get served, right? Because they didn't know anything about me. And that now you have all these opt-ins, right? Or these opportunities. Do you accept cookies and all that stuff? And it creates a better experience. I'm wondering with fair housing if it's like, because when you mentioned the engagement of certain ads that had certain skin colors or whatever, honestly, that for that person may be what they were looking for. That's why they engaged. But now, because of fair housing rules and guidelines, you're going to force me to look at ads that don't actually resonate with me or land. That's not a good experience.
Yeah.
And so none of the public really knows what the hell's going on. They don't understand all this stuff between cookies and fair housing. But will there be a point where it's like, I'm just going to opt into all this stuff, which may sound crazy, but I know I'm going to get a better experience versus opting out. And now I'm not going to be crass here, but I've seen ads myself that I know were sent intentionally to my wife. It's like, why did I just get this on ESPN? You know? And so I just think there's such an interesting thing here because, the renters, the prospects, they have no idea. What they want is a good experience.
Right.
And because of this, you can end up with social engineering where you have assets and people living that probably aren't the greatest fit. And you certainly are going to get a lot of advertising marketing for assets that maybe you're not really interested in, ads you don't really like, because we're over-engineering all the guidelines, laws. And I'm a big believer in the idea of it, but I guess I'm just nailing home your point that they aren't fully really grasping or educated about this space.
Yeah.
And so inadvertently, are potentially creating poor experiences online for people that are trying to find a home.
Right. Yeah. There's got to be a nice middle ground between like connecting and having like a good user experience to get there. Right. And then also having, the advertising reach everybody that it should, and not intentionally or unintentionally excluding certain people.
Right.
Well, I know it's early, as you said, with the new guidelines coming out. But Phil, if people want to read this paper, what's the best way that they're going to be able to get it from you?
Actually, we'll publish it to our site, but I think we're going to be sending it out selectively, right? What's the plan, Matthew?
Yeah. So I would say contact us, apartmentgeofencing.com, and you can contact us from there, and we'll get you the white paper.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it's super interesting. I'm glad that you guys are doing it. I mean, Reed and I felt like we're the only ones screaming into the abyss on this for a little while. So we are glad that more people are bringing awareness. So thank you.
Get a big cup of coffee and your glasses if you have glasses when you read, and take the 2 hours to read the new guidelines.
Yeah.
That or we're planning our fall webinars now, so maybe we do a webinar with you guys in the fall, spin off of it.
Great idea.
That'd be great. Or just hit select all, on the PDF, drop it in GPT and say, give me the bullets.
Yeah.
That's going to work out nice.
That's my go-to prompt. Explain this to me.
Very
like I'm
trustworthy.
five. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.